I'm in Hanley, in the heart of Stoke-on-Trent, and I'm standing by an incredibly dapper gentleman. This is the newly unveiled statue of the Edwardian novelist and playwright Arnold Bennett, and it's to mark the 150th anniversary of his birth. There are lots of citywide celebrations, including the dramatisation of one of his best-known novels, Anna of the Five Towns. It's a story about a young woman with a tyrannical father and a large inheritance. I'm heading to the New Vic Theatre to meet the director, Conrad Nelson, and Lucy Bromelow, who plays Anna.
So this is one of the entrances for the audience, and we've got this all clad with brickwork, a bit akin to the bottle ovens that you'll see down at Middleport Pottery.
And when we walk onto the set, it's all in the round, there's this sunken bit, which is obviously a parlour, is that right, Lucy? Laid with beautiful...
So it's the house, so it's the centre of Anna's life. It's very simple, not lavish at all.
And on the table, which is really Spartan, we do have original mason's pottery. Very important that we're sitting here in the pottery is that we don't misrepresent what was on the table. So the first row we've substituted with these chapel chairs, so as soon as the audience come in, they feel immediately part of this Methodist background.
Well, we've drawn up some of the chapel chairs, and we're joined as well now by Deborah McAndrew, who's adapted Arnold Bennett's novel for the stage. How would you sum up the essence of the story?
I suppose it's about a young woman's awakening in many ways to independence, to self-determination, to love, and then the reality of what's possible.
She's 21 at the beginning of the play, and she inherits a great deal of money and real estate worth £50,000. Then, which we worked out was around about £6 million, which I'd like. She then has all this responsibility put upon her. She's in this very, very, very austere household.
That's the lot. Have you got them?
Yes.
Shall I keep them for you?
Yes, please.
And give them me.
When shall I call at the bank, Father?
This afternoon at 4:03, mind you.
Very well. But I shan't know what to do.
You've got a tongue in that noddle of yours, haven't you? Now go and get along with them potatoes.
She is a woman from another age. She's an obedient daughter of a miser and a patriarch. She's in this love triangle with this eligible businessman, and then this young man, the son of one of their tenants who's well behind in arrears on their rent. Lucy, how did you approach the part of Anna?
She is very complex in many ways. She's very stoic. She's always thought of duty, and she doesn't say a lot. She's very laconic. It's hard to get things across sometimes, and I think that is her mystery. You know, she's very mysterious. You have to discover the journey of her throughout the play, and she has to change, which she does.
Debs, we're so used to seeing a certain kind of Victorian heroine, aren't we? You know, feisty and obviously romantic. Anna is obedient. So much is internal in the novel. How did you bring her to life on stage?
I mean, it was a very difficult book to adapt because the structure of the novel is we see the two suitors, Henry and Willie, right at the start of the story, waiting outside the chapel. Anna enters the story, and the moment she enters the story, Arnold Bennett stays with her. We're not privy to anyone else's thoughts but hers, the inmost turmoils that she's experiencing in terms of her relationships with these young men in her life, with her father, her sister. It's all inside, and the religious world that she's being raised in.
Tell me about that, because there's a real oppressive sense of religion in her life, and it's something that Arnold Bennett hated and fled as a young man. How do you present that on stage?
I wanted to dramatise this book, not put the novel on stage, if you see what I mean. So I didn't want any direct address to the audience or any narration or anything like that. So it all had to be in the drama. And the solution to that was to put a choir on the stage that represents the world of the Five Towns, who are in a sense a character, like Egdon Heath in Hardy's, Return of the Native or something like that. It's a very powerful presence. So I felt that we needed them, but I'd got a brief for 8 actors. So it's like, okay, what do we do? Well, what we do is we partner with a community choir.
Rock of Ages, cleft for me.
The Phoenix Singers from Leek who've joined us, and they provide a musical presence within the story, which is parlour songs, but also this very, very powerful religious presence, which is extremely oppressive, not just in a religious sense, but in a social sense as well.
Mr. Sutton's coachman is at the back door. He's brought a letter, and there must be an answer, and he's waiting.
It's from Beatrice. Dear Miss Tellwright, Mother gives tea to the Sunday school sewing meeting here at Lansdowne House on Thursday afternoon. Everyone is working very hard for the autumn bazaar, and Mother has set her mind on the Sunday school being the best.
A big part of the novel is the world of the potteries. It's filthy and there's all the smoke and the soot. How do you present that? Because it's the world that the money comes from.
At the end of Act 1 we have a scene which is in the book. We go to the Providence Works, Henry Miner's works, and we see reenacted with the Phoenix Singers the running of an ideal pottery at the Providence
it's a very
Works.
famous sequence where, he takes her as a part of the courtship through the assembly line of the pottery.
And he's in love with her, but he's in love with the business, and he's in love with those sort of things as well.
The world is dirty and difficult and hard, and Bennett does describe that. In the sequence, it is the ideal pot bank. It's the perfect design. The clay comes in one end and the finished pots at the other. And it's got this sort of ready brick rosy glow about it in the book. At that point, if we go into real social realism, that doesn't feel right. Anna is enchanted.
Anna's father rents out these decrepit works that, the prices can't afford to leave. It seems to me a play like, you've staged in the modern world where there's so much concern about landlords and rents and exploitation. It has a contemporary resonance, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I think it's perfectly resonant. Those themes never go away, do they, of exploitation and this absolute hardline capitalist, it's about profit and nothing else.
We should be compelled to give you notice. What's amiss with this pot bank is that it wants pulling down. I can't pay anything now. I've nothing by me at all.
Father said particularly I was to be sure and get something on account.
Arnold Bennett, who wrote Anna of the Five Towns, it's the 150th anniversary of his birth, and few people have come across his work in recent years. Lucy, I wondered if you had.
Shamefully, no, I hadn't. I hadn't come across him. But reading the book, I was fascinated by how he could write this woman and how it was such brilliant writing.
He was a very, very fine writer, and should be discovered by more people.
What has been the reaction from local audiences? Arnold Bennett and Anna of the Five Towns is a kind of local-owned classic, isn't it?
This is one of the best ever sold shows they've had at the theatre, and the advances far exceeded expectations because people are so engaged with their local story.
It's so great that Stoke is so passionate about this writer and this story. So, yeah, there is that pressure of, making sure that you tell it right. Even the community choir that we have in, they said that it's what they imagined, the characters, they were right.
I come from Yorkshire. There's a great sense of identity there. People hear their voice coming back at them in their own literature, in their own theatres. Lots of Manchester stuff on telly. Birmingham with something like Peaky Blinders, they hear their own voices back at them. People of Stoke-on-Trent don't get that very often. So when you put out a story that's for them, about them, where they can come and hear their own dialect, the language of the potteries and the mines, of course they're absolutely enraptured by that, and so they should be. They're only getting what everybody else gets and expects.
Deborah McAndrew, Conrad Nelson and Lucy Bromlow. Anna of the Five Towns is on at the New Vic Theatre in Newcastle under Lyme and